All right, and we're back with the program. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here on the Pop Culture Cosmos. I know this year has been a little bit crazy with the coronavirus and all that, but one thing that hasn't slowed down at all is con life. That's right. Comic Cons are still going on across the country. They're finding new ways to approach their audience with several ideas out there, from virtual to other ways they can go ahead and connect with their audience, because people still want to go ahead and celebrate Comic Cons because they are such a great place to go, such a way to go ahead and have everybody get together to have a fun time, especially on various aspects of pop culture. And one of the best places to go for your news and information on con life is theconguide.com. It's news of the con universe, and you want to check it out right now. If that's the case and you're interested as far as Comic Cons, whether it's recent ones or ones upcoming, there's no better place to go than theconguide.com. In fact, I'm showing everybody on Facebook Live right now all the crazy stuff and all the great stuff that they have right there, right now, right on theconguide.com. And I've got two of the guys behind theconguide.com right now on with me on the show, and that's Luke Cheeseman and Jim Fry. And guys, thank you so much for being part of the program today.
Thank you for having us. This is such a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, good to be here.
Well, it's great to have you guys on the show. First up, I want to ask you, Luke, is that, as you know, with the coronavirus, it has totally just thrown everything out of whack from every part of the society. And obviously, we don't want to get into the huge particulars with that, but con life with Comic Cons and there's so much of a part of pop culture. And unfortunately, the way we've seen over this year, as far as the different aspects of con life, have changed because of coronavirus, hasn't it?
Definitely. So a lot of the conventions, as you know, like a big part was just these large gatherings of people, and a lot of it was based off that. And they'd have these convention floors that were basically shoulder to shoulder. You go to a place like San Diego Comic-Con, especially, where like you could barely walk through the floor because it was just so crowded. And with all this happening, we're not able to go. But a lot of them have kind of decided to do more of the virtual. And luckily, a lot of the vendors have been able to survive because of the online shopping and all that. And a lot of them were worried about it in the beginning because they weren't getting the business. And basically all their main business from the year comes from these conventions. But it's been interesting to see how they've been adapting to the change that's going on right now.
Yeah. It is. And Jim, you wanted to add in on that too, because like I said, it's been a complete different way. And the Comic-Cons that have really gone out and thought together about how to approach this differently, they've done a lot of different things to go ahead and still connect with their consumer base.
Yeah, they really have. I know that we'll take San Diego, for example. They came out probably with the most robust online experience. Most of the conventions, if not all, I mean, there's still some conventions that are still on the schedule as they are trying to happen, but it's very doubtful we're going to see any in-person conventions this year. So they've all tried to create something virtual, and we've got to give them credit. At the beginning, it probably wasn't the best. People slapped on a couple of panels and, oh, here's a guest, and you can pay to see this one guest over here or something. But San Diego Comic-Con kind of changed it all. They pushed out 350 hours of programming over 5 days, all staggered at different times, just like you were at a convention. And they were high profile. They had The Walking Dead. They had Bill and Ted's. What's the third movie coming out? Bill and Ted and everybody was there. It was hosted by
Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Yeah, hosted by Kevin Smith. And this caliber of shows. And then, but not only that, but because people can see videos just about anywhere, but the interaction, like Comic-Con, they still had portfolio reviews where you could submit your artwork if you were an aspiring artist and you get feedback. They still had the masquerade where people did 15-second performances and it was all put together and voted upon. So they had like interaction, which was great. Some of the like New York Comic-Con we just heard recently they're going 100% online as well, and they're put together by Reed Pop, one of the largest organizers of fan conventions. And so they're having they put together like a meta convention of all their different brands. And then in October, New York Comic-Con is going online. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do. We're kind of in an evolving space right now where everybody is seeing that, wow, there is a little bit of, fatigue of only being able to see things online, but the conventions are starting to get a little bit more creative and looking for ways to interact with fans. Because that's what, like Luke just said, that's what everybody's missing. I mean, we love the news. We love finding out about pop culture. We love finding out about what our favorite celebrities and favorite comic book artists are doing. But there's nothing that can really replace right now the interaction of shaking hands, meeting your favorite people. But they're trying. They are trying a lot of, they're using Cameo, which is an online way for a lot of celebrities that would be at conventions to do special one-on-ones with people. And people are doing, there's still autograph opportunities available. So yeah, it's a tough season. And but like Luke said, one of the biggest things that was hit was the vendors, because so many vendors make their livelihood off these conventions, and they're kind of having a really hard time right now. So we just encourage everybody to make sure you are still following your favorite vendors, and don't abandon them during this time, because they need you just as much as you want to be a part of what they're doing.
Absolutely. Excuse me. Absolutely. You guys said it best right there with the fact that all these vendors, it is their livelihood. A lot of these men and women out there that go to San Diego Comic-Con, that go to Las Vegas stuff that's here,
Mm-hmm.
Las Vegas Comic-Con and that go to several Comic-Cons that are across the country. This is how they do their business. Baseball card shop owners too, and they go to their special conventions and whatnot. That's, like I said, you see those vendors there. This is a great portion of their livelihood. You can only sell so much online, and you can only go ahead and interact so much online. So yes, this has hurt quite a bit, that end of the business. And I wanted to ask you guys mentioned San Diego Comic-Con, which everybody knows is probably the most infamous of all Comic-Cons that are out there. And we covered it quite a bit on this show extensively. And one of the things that we covered, Luke, was the fact that Marvel and DC decided to predominantly, I mean, they were there in spirit, they were there in a couple panels as far as a minor nature, but predominantly are doing their own thing. Marvel hasn't really announced something formal, if there's going to be a D23 related thing, or we are also seeing as well with DC, they're doing their Fun-Dome event next week. So I want to ask you your opinion on San Diego Comic-Con. As Jim mentioned, there were several things each and every day that fans could look forward to, but was missing Marvel and DC that one big thing that could draw in enough audiences? Because I think that for me and a lot of reaction out there, they're saying that Marvel and that DC element missing was a big hit to San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah, I think a lot of those bigger panels were missing. You could definitely feel the absence of that, because usually starting as soon as Thursday, they were dropping big panel. Like, you'd have all these big movies they were promoting, and you basically from there all the way to Sunday, and having these like gigantic panels just all the time. And especially those like Warner Brothers or the Marvel DC, like those announcements were something, like you'd look forward to probably more than anything happening, at least on my end. Like, I loved hearing like, this is the next phase of Marvel, or here's a special glimpse at this, and kind of missing that did feel like part of my Comic-Con experience was missing. Now, I do feel that some of the smaller panels that usually don't get as many people, and we were on one of those panels that usually only fills maybe a couple hundred or so, but it got a couple thousand views because of the virtual experience of like, hey, I'm usually at this other bigger one. I didn't have a chance to do that. So you're able to get a lot more views on some of these smaller ones. It's cool that they're recorded, but especially those bigger ones, having the fan reactions and having these just gigantic announcements, I definitely did miss those.
I did miss them as well, and you're going to be seeing next week with all the big announcements that DC has to. Oh, I'm sorry, in 10 days from our conversation, what DC has to offer. They're going to obviously run down a lot of things that SDCC could have benefited from, which is kind of disappointing because, we see this as well with E3 in the video game world, that now all these publishers want to do their own thing, and all these major, like Xbox, PlayStation, and the like, they now want to go ahead and do their own thing and break off from what they were doing once with E3. And E3 is suffering for it. And they were trying it, like when it was back live before coronavirus, they were actually bringing in the public and trying to do things to garner and try and bring in more notoriety for it. But I see there's a point where there's a future for some of these Comic-Cons, like SDCC. If it goes back to the real world as far as we're getting out of coronavirus and people are starting to really gather again in numbers, and San Diego Comic-Con doesn't get back DC and Marvel, there could be a real problem.
I agree with you. The thing about Marvel, though, is, you know, everybody, that is perhaps Marvel and DC, those are the premier giant Hall H events, which kind of make Comic-Con, the modern Comic-Con, what it is today. With Marvel, because of the shutdowns and the pandemics and the stop in production, I'm not so sure that they had a full grasp on what their release schedule is even going to be, because it's been changing. Even as much as 2 weeks ago, you know, there was the investors conference with Walt Disney Company, and things were being changed as well. Like Mulan just got moved. It's going to become an online pay-for-view over the Disney Plus premiere, and that has kind of like changed the whole film slate for the Walt Disney Company. So everything got pushed back by a year. So I think that might be part of the reason Marvel's kind of decided not to be part of it. Also, I know that Marvel loves to show super secret inside clips from their panels. And the way that it was presented this year, I bet you they were concerned that they probably couldn't maintain the secrecy. They, you know, what they showed would get out immediately, which it always does anyways. And I do think that DC and Marvel will be back. DC especially, Warner Brothers DC, they're perhaps, like it was last year at San Diego Con, I think they had like 22 to 26 panels, and they sponsored so much stuff. It's their big thing. I, though, am looking forward to the DC event that's coming up, because it looks very, very cool.
But that's the thing, though, Jim. If DC really likes it and it comes off as a big hit, I see it less and less for them to go like, hey, we don't need you, Comic-Con, or we need you to a much lesser extent. They might still go ahead and sprinkle some stuff the way of San Diego Comic-Con, but if they really like what they want to go ahead, they're going to save the best for their own stuff. Just like D23. I mean, they were great. Marvel was very gracious in what they did and what they sent off and what they put off and what they announced for last year at Comic-Con, because they very could have easily shelved that for D23 for the most part. And they've chosen to go ahead and split. And now continuously going forward, I'm hoping that they will go do that, because I'd hate to see San Diego Comic-Con lose its importance in pop culture, because I still think it does, because their presence allows all these other shows, like you were talking about, The Walking Dead, Bill and Ted, etc., allows them to go ahead and have bigger prominence. And the news media is even more into SDCC with both those entities there as well.
Yeah. But, you know, remember, Comic-Con is 50 years old, 51 this year, and Marvel Studios is only 11 years old. So I think that I agree with you. The Marvel panel and the DC panel are two of my favorite things at San Diego Comic-Con, in addition to whenever Lucasfilm decides to come back and bring a large panel.
Yeah.
Those are anchors, but there's probably 600 other panels that are going on. And I know this sounds like, well, look at something else. I'm not saying that. The absence of Marvel and DC from the San Diego Comic-Con at home experience was felt, and it was a giant size hole that could not be filled by anything else. That being said, I do think that the online conventions that San Diego put on was pretty well done. I think that the one coming up from New York will be pretty well done, but there's nothing that's going to replace the being there experience. And and I do agree with you. You know, some of the media outlets have said that the online conventions only got of San Diego only got like 95% of the media mentions from previous years. That may be true, and I don't know. I don't know if there's any way to avoid that. I'm hoping this is not our new normal. I'm hoping we can eventually open the world back up and return to happier times. But until then, I think San Diego did a bang up job of doing it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what DC is doing. But like you said, I hope DC and Marvel don't drop out of San Diego Comic-Con permanently. That would definitely be a blow.
That would be real blow, because like I said, not only does it help enhance San Diego Comic-Con as a whole, but all the other shows that are there in the platforms, like we were talking about, and they did the best they could with what they had on such short notice, and the decisions that were made, as far as should we go live, should we go virtual, everything of that nature. So I give them credit, like you said, for going ahead and putting off what they did, because they tried to do the best they can, and they put off a really good experience for fans. I just hope enough fans were going to go ahead and invest into it without a DC and Marvel. That's what I'm hoping going forward.
Yeah. I know that, just real briefly, like the thing that Luke was saying, the Hall H presentation usually gets, it seats about 6,500 people. The New Mutants, within 2 days, it had 240,000 views. So, like, I'm wondering if, like, the reach was, they're measuring it differently a little bit. Instead of, like, tweets and pictures of people sitting in the room, actually people watched the real full presentation. So there was you could feel it, but there's some media reach that actually happened, some influential reach that happened for these shows and these brands that needed to get out there. Like I say, we were on a panel that normally we see about 300 in the room. 5,000 people tuned into our panel this time, which was, like, for us, pretty exciting.
Absolutely. And go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, I just think, they just need to start streaming more stuff, even when they have them, in-person conventions, so they're getting it out to even more people, because people will still come to, especially something like Comic-Con. You're not going to lose any numbers to it being virtual, but you'll just gain numbers because more people want to do it. And I will say one thing I did like about having it virtual this year is collectibles, because a lot of times collectibles, you got to stand in these long lines, you miss panels, you miss things, and I'm sure it was just as hard for some different things, but there were some collectibles I did not have to stand in line for that I was able to just order online with a click. They did sell out quick, so you did have to kind of be on top of that, but I did like not having to go wait in a long line to get collectibles.
You just had all the tabs open on your computer, and you had all the other computers as well, just right there for you. Buy. No.
Exactly. And there were exclusives to Comic-Con too, which was awesome. So San Diego still had their exclusives, and even like companies like Hero Within, we talked about, like vendors, like they made special kind of items for the Comic-Con at home, and they actually did really well and sold out like on a lot of those. So there's a lot of potential for them to continue making sales in this new kind of direction for them.
Absolutely indeed. Once again, I'm on with Luke Cheeseman and Jim Fry from The Con Guy. You got to check out their awesome site today, theconguy.com, where they cover the latest and greatest going on in conventions and Comic-Cons right there for you. Got a ton of stuff for you right there, including exclusives, videos, cosplay, podcasts, and also updated convention information. So you want to go ahead and check it out today, theconguy.com. But before we get to what you guys are working on with Shark Week and all that, because I covered it as well on the Monday show about what the importance of it is for the Discovery Channel. I know Josh and I talked about it at length in regards to that, but I want to hear you guys' thoughts in a sec. If you could have one thing that you would add into the mix right now in the current climate of Comic-Cons, Jim, Luke, I want to hear your thoughts on one thing you would add to make it special, to make it more worthwhile, to make it so they could draw in, obviously, a larger consumer base. Luke or Jim, and who wants to go first?
Do you mean like the online experience right now?
Let's say you guys are running a Comic-Con.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you're doing the think tank. All right, and you guys got to go ahead together and butt heads on exactly what one aspect you'd like to throw in there.
I got something.
All right.
So when you're at these panels, like a big thing is the Q&A time. Like people just get so excited to ask these people these questions. Now, I think whether it's because I wish they had more of a live chat feed, although it would probably be going insane. But if they'd select just a select few of people that would get to kind of just video chat in, you get to see that kind of freak out kind of people getting all starstruck moment to kind of ask their favorite, actors or filmmakers or whatever the questions. I feel like that would add a little more personal to it, and it'll draw more people in. Like, I may get to ask this person a question. So I would definitely add that aspect in. I would say that would be my number one thing.
I would say the same thing. The number one thing they need to do right now is find a way for you to interact with the people you're coming to see, whether it's your favorite artist, your writer, the creators, or even celebrities. If there's a way to interact and ask questions, meet, make an autograph feel a little bit more personal than just like clicking a tab and it shows up in the mail. If there's a way that somebody can break that code, they're going to have created an awesome online experience that I think will live after the pandemic.
There you go. Go get to the patent office, guys. Get to the patent office. So you got to go ahead and come up with something like that. There you go. You got something on your hands right there. But before we head on out, guys, I want to go ahead and get your thoughts, because you guys, obviously, by looking at Facebook Live, your walls, and seeing the impression that Jaws has made in your life, and you're going to theconguy.com, and you can see the interviews that you've done there, and also as well just basically everything that you've got there in regards to how important Shark Week is to both you guys. But in reference to the stuff that you guys do for the site, but also in your own personal lives, Jim, I'll start with you. Jim, I'll start with you. Please just let me know exactly what Shark Week means to you.
I have always loved Shark Week. I get excited every year about it. But as far as like the Con Guy, since we are a website that celebrates conventions and fandoms, I've got to actually give credit to Luke. This was Luke's brainchild, and he really wanted to do something to tie it. Like we're also screenwriters, and one of the reasons Luke loves screenwriting is because of the movie Jaws. It's one of the things, and I don't want to speak for him, so I'm gonna pitch it over to Luke. All I want to say is, if you guys love Shark Week and you love Jaws, come on, check us out at theconguy.com. We have a whole week's worth of interviews with people from the original Jaws on there. It's fantastic. Go ahead, Luke.
Yeah. Well, since I was about 8 years old when I kind of came across Jaws for the first time, as far as actually kind of attempting to watch the movie, which I still kind of looked away on the shark parts when I was a kid, but I just created this lifelong obsession with Jaws and great white sharks, especially the great white sharks. I was obsessed with other sharks. I'd go to the library, get every book I could on sharks. So like, I just was very big into sharks, and then it kind of fizzled. It never fully fizzled out, but then kind of getting into the fandom stuff, I just really got back into Jaws and started collecting things. If you see my house, I just have so many different things. If I see exclusives or different things of Jaws, I just have to buy them. But I feel bad for my future wife. She's going to be like, what are we going to do with this stuff? But I've always loved it, and as being a big fan, and you know, I came up with the idea. I was like, with it being the 45th anniversary, why don't we do something we've never done, where we do a week-long thing of shows? Because usually we do a show every like week or two, but I was like, let's celebrate Shark Week. Let's celebrate Jaws 45th anniversary. I don't see anything out there where you're really getting a different show each day on it. So we went and we contacted a lot of the people from it, and we're just even today we're like continuing to build even more and more people, and it might even be something that continues beyond Shark Week. Like for instance, we have people like Joe Alves who created the shark. There's something going on called Return of the Orca, which is basically they're recreating the orca, and they're calling it the Orca 3 project. And you can support that, and you can even go on boat tours once it's done. We had them on. We also had a couple actors. We had Jeffrey Voorhees, who played Alex Kintner himself. You can check that on our website. That's out right now. And then we also just today released Jeffrey Kramer, who played Deputy Hendricks. And we just have so much more coming. And we have Carl Gottlieb. We're very excited about that. And we did a previous interview with Greg Nicotero that we're going to be sharing, because he took the only remaining shark made from the original mold. It was basically the Bruce 4. It was in a junkyard, and then he took it back in and restored it fully. It's going to be in a museum, hopefully at the end of the year if it opens, but it looks beautiful. Joe Alves came and saw it in person and may have been involved personally some with that, which I think he was, because him and Greg are pretty close and they're in pictures together there. But it's been awesome just sharing this experience and getting the fan reactions online. Like we're getting comments and other people that just love it. And this might be something we continue of, like taking certain fandoms and seeing like, hey, can we build like an episode 1, 2, 3 of just exploring a fandom or different casts or different people. And there's a chance we are looking into possibly doing a Back to the Future thing if that can work out. But I'm very excited to be sharing Jaws and doing it during Shark Week and watching Shark Week as we're doing it.
Yeah, awesome indeed. And on the 45th, well, this is the year of the 45th anniversary of Jaws. I know that it's getting closer and closer to the 50th anniversary here in a few years, but each and every year, Shark Week is an event in and of itself. And it just reminds people of the fascination that we have with sharks in and of itself. So again, if you want to go ahead and check out all the shows that they're doing and everything that they're up to, you want to go ahead and check it out today at theconguy.com. both Luke and Jim and everyone there do a great job on covering everything. I've been actually checking out since we started arranging this interview, checking out everything that they're doing, and it truly is a great job indeed. Plus, again, if you need the latest to greatest news on everything upcoming for, like you guys were talking about, fandom events or Comic-Cons, no better place to go than theconguy.com. Well, guys, it's been great talking to you. I want to get you back on the show again as we talk more Comic-Cons here in the near future. Hopefully there'll be a time in the not too distant future we can get back to normal, like you were talking about, Jim, with fans interacting once again. Just truly appreciate that type of atmosphere. As someone who's been to several Comic-Cons over the years himself, I miss it. I miss the camaraderie. I miss the connections people make. I miss looking out on the floor and seeing people in their cosplay outfits, just talking to each other, remarking and appreciating each other's work that they do to go ahead and put into it, and just basically the all around great atmosphere of the Comic-Cons itself. So
that's right. Fans need each other. Fans need each other to celebrate what we love.
Absolutely, absolutely indeed. Well, once again, I've got Luke Cheeseman and Jim Fry on the show from theconguy.com. Hopefully you get a chance to check out their awesome site, theconguy.com, as soon as possible, and hopefully you get a nice bite out of that site as well.
It's safe to go back in the water.
Exactly. Well, guys, it's just been so great having you on the show, and I look forward to bringing you back on again real soon right here at The Pop Culture.